The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jameson Rabbit, and the man seated with me this week thinks Triceratopses were just way too smug. His name is Mike Roth.
Yeah, I mean, why do you need 3 horns? That's just silly. 2 will do the job.
It's kind of show-offy, isn't it?
It is. If you think about it, it's overdone. It's
Yeah.
overdone just a little bit, and the Triceratops kind of knows it. It knows that it's one of the more popular ones. Of course, we have the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Sure.
And Jurassic Park made, the raptors more popular, but Triceratops, it's like right there above Brontosaurus, I think. And it's just,
the rhinos.
I'm sick of it.
The rhino's been fine with 1 horn.
Yeah.
Sometimes 2, I think. I don't know.
Sometimes they have 2.
Yeah.
I can't think of, the horned toad, but I don't know if those are really horns. My expertise is in the Triceratops.
Well, they paid the price for their smugness. I'll just say it. All right.
I
They got what they deserved.
I hope they die out soon.
Oh, Michael, we have some movies for your pleasure this week, and I'm going to get us started on our streaming spotlight with a film on Netflix called I'm Thinking of Ending Things from writer-director Charlie Kaufman. Stars Jessie Buckley as a young woman. Her name is a mystery. At some points in the movie, she goes by Lucy. Sometimes she goes by Yvonne. We're not quite sure why. And on its face, it's the story of a young woman who's going on a trip to meet her boyfriend's parents, while also kind of struggling with her decision whether to end this relationship. They make this long drive through a snowy wilderness towards the family farmhouse. And on this drive, they kind of have some uneasy conversations, and there's hints to these two actually not knowing each other very well. And her boyfriend, Jake, played by Jesse Plemons, he's really great at always kind of playing the awkward, well-meaning guy who kind of has hints of darkness below the surface, He's really good at that.
He doesn't really play starring roles very often.
No. He always kind of plays like, oh, that guy's kind of weird. Mm-hmm. So throughout this drive, it's weird from the beginning because Charlie Kaufman, he cuts to these odd interludes during this kind of slow drive. And the interludes are of a high school janitor. And it seems to make no sense. Like some of the cuts, he's just sweeping a floor of an empty high school. Mm-hmm. Some cuts, he's watching an unrelated movie. You're watching a janitor watch a movie. You're like, I don't know what's going on with this, but it's neither here nor there. They arrive at the farmhouse, and things aren't right. Jake starts acting really strange. His parents, Lucy and Jake show up, and the parents take forever to even come downstairs. It's weird. His parents are played by Toni Collette and David Thewlis, who, Toni Collette is kind of playing the same kind of mother that we saw in, what was the film, Hereditary?
Oh, okay,
right?
Yeah.
Kind of pulling that vibe. And they're well-meaning, and but you see there's something odd about them. They're weird. And things just start to feel off. And as they sit down to have dinner together, exchange pleasantries, reality in this movie seems to become less and less clear. And things start happening in this farmhouse that really sometimes don't make any sense. As they're sitting there, she begins to watch his parents age before her eyes.
Oh.
And appear in different phases of their lives, basically.
Like rapidly age?
Like she goes into a room, she comes back, and they're elderly. And it's very strange. The house begins to feel like this mental trap. And, of course, snow is building up outside to kind of give that claustrophobic feeling. And she's very concerned about, I have to get back. I have to work in the morning. She's a writer. I have to get back. I have something to do. And nobody is really concerned about the blizzard that's coming. And, oh, no, it's fine, it's fine. And she starts to get panicked. And this anxiety in this film starts to really build as you kind of learn, as you go along, you learn less and less about these characters. You start to realize, I really don't know anything about these people. Things are happening that I don't quite get. And this house is becoming incredibly strange.
And meanwhile, there's still janitor clips throughout the
Right, yes, and that still is kind of coming. And it feels like, kind of like The Shining, where suddenly it starts to feel like she's lived a lifetime in this house that she's visiting for the first time. And things are happening, and it's almost supernatural in ways, but it's just very confusing. Eventually, you know, they're able to leave the house. And the weird thing is, like, Jake is completely unfazed by everything that's happening. She turns to him and he's like completely unfazed, like, oh no, my parents, they're kind of weird. Like, I watched your mother turn into an elderly woman before my eyes. But they eventually are able to get out of there, and it's when they finally get on the road home that the real darkness in this movie starts to become apparent, and things start to get real creepy and real weird. And it's a very intense psychological drama that from the first like 20 minutes, it doesn't seem like it's going to be there. It's kind of boring in the beginning, actually, because they're just having this awkward conversation. But nothing is spelled out in this movie. Like, there are so many things that happen, and Kaufman is not going to hold your hand through this movie at all. And so it also, he uses this 4:3 aspect ratio, so the screen is smaller. It feels claustrophobic. You know, you can see the edges, and it's just kind of purposeful, and it feels very strange as she can't get free, and it's really anxiety-inducing, this movie is. I felt myself really getting my cockles up because it was really anxiety-inducing. And really all of the leads, Jessie Buckley and Jesse Plemons especially, were just tremendous. They're just really good in these roles of kind of panicked and dark and weirdness, and kind of reminiscent. Charlie Kaufman, you know, he's kind of known for these weird movies. Like, he did Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, he did Being John Malkovich. Movies that make you think.
Yeah,
like,
both great movies.
Yeah, right? Great movie. Like, I'm not sure what's going on. So it's not a movie that I would say is for everyone. I think if you like answers to questions that are brought up and you really demand answers from those questions, this might not be for you.
Do you feel like this movie is still fully fleshed, even though it was confusing?
I do. I think that it really, like, especially in the last 15 minutes, it got weird, but I started to understand what was going on to a different level, to a different degree. I do still have questions. This is one of those movies that I think if you focus in on it, this isn't a movie that you can sit and like look at your phone and watch it. Like, if you have to focus in and allow the mood to do its job and just kind of take it all in. And so it's one of those movies that, like, I'm looking forward to revisiting this in the future, but I'm also kind of dreading it, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. But it's one of those movies that's kind of hung around in my head a little bit. Yeah. I have to get to that at some point. Strange movie for sure.
Did they explain janitor at all? Or you can tell me
you
later.
You get an explanation on the janitor at some point, yeah. So I'm thinking of ending things. I give a 4 stars. 4 stars on Netflix.
Nice.
So if that sounds interesting to you at all, I recommend it. It's worth checking out. It's worth your time. So there you go.
Very cool.
What do you have on our streaming spotlight, sir?
I had something that was on my top 10 list.
Yes, it was.
Earlier this year.
Very high, I believe.
I was extremely excited and then very disappointed when I found out I might not have the possibility of watching this anytime soon. What I'm talking about is Mulan, directed by Nikki Caro. She also did one of my favorite small independent films, Whale Rider, I think.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And,
we did that years ago, yeah.
Other people might know her from The Zookeeper's Wife and McFarlane USA. So what we're doing is kind of retelling the animated story that Disney did back in 1997. It's a very popular thing for them to do. If you have not seen it, I will just give a brief synopsis. It's Mulan is a daughter in this is pretty much back in like imperial China, and you have problems with like barbarian hordes just coming in and attacking. So they made wall and all this other stuff. Mulan is a girl in a small village that she's always been kind of awkward. She's not really the kind of person that wants to be the doting wife and the silent person. She goes out and she's smart and she's inquisitive, and she kind of gets in trouble a little bit. all they want of her daughter is to make the matchmaker proud and happy so that she gets a good match. But that's not really the path Mulan is going to take. A barbarian horde, it was different in both animated film and this film, attacks one of the villages in the empire, and it's kind of a call out for war to protect themselves, and every male from every village has to take either the youngest son or one of the sons or the father has to go to war. Mulan's dad, he is a retired veteran and not doing very great, but out of honor, he decides he is going to go in the morning with his sword and his armor, and he'll probably never come back. Mulan sees this. She's like, no, this is just suicide for him. I'm not going to let this happen. So she steals his armor, steals his sword, and runs off to pretend that she is the youngest son of his and fight in his place. Of course, you know, this is during a time where little hijinks like that can get you killed, so she tries really hard to try to blend in, while at the same time there's a little bit of romance between another person and a lot of heroism on the behalf of Mulan. Now the difference in this movie and the animated film is this is trying to take a more serious note. They took out all the, and a lot of people are upset about this, they took out the musical part, they took out the Mushu, which is the protective dragon, and the animated film was played by Steve, almost gave away someone else, wow, that blanked out. Help me out.
Who was it in the animated film? Was it Eddie Murphy?
Eddie Murphy, thank you very much. Played by Eddie Murphy. The cricket is gone, and there was a lucky cricket that had kind of a happy-go-lucky attitude. They replaced the cricket with an actual human being who was funny and really enduring. And they concentrated more on fleshing out kind of a true story that's more updated to kind of a woman trying to be in a man's world. And in this film, Mulan wasn't just someone who kind of bumbled into a really bad situation. She's actually very skilled. And in this movie, they took a main character, the general, who was a love interest in the animated film. The people who were making this movie, they're like, that's a little creepy that she is falling in love with a superior, and it kind of made the earlier Mulan look like, you know, she was more involved in trying to be romantic and trying to hold that back, where in this one, they separated that character and they made the general, who was all about business, and then an equal, another warrior of the same status as her. And it made a really cool love story. You could tell that he was in love. He wasn't in love with Mulan because Mulan is supposedly a man, but you could tell that there is an attraction. He wants to be friends with this person so bad.
So there's a connection between them.
There is a connection, and I liked that connection. And I liked how Mulan had to force herself away from him because she did not want to show everybody that her chi skills is beyond everybody else. She wanted to just blend in, do the fighting, and go home so that her family can still, you know, be honorable. There is an extra element in order to change things and make it a little bit more historically accurate. There is no Huns. We have Jason Scott Lee. He plays Bora Khan.
Oh, I love Jason Scott Lee.
He is so fantastic, and this is another improvement over the animated film. In the first film, the main bad guy, he was Shen Yu, and he was part of the Huns, which isn't historically accurate. So they made him Rohan, and he became Bora Khan. And he is menacing looking. He's a large guy, and he has the face of someone who everybody wanted to kill at some point, but really couldn't succeed because he's really good at surviving and fighting at the same time. And he is backed up, instead of by a hawk, which was in the animated film, we have Gong Li. It plays Sheng Yang, who is a witch. And she has a parallel story with Mulan, which also gives it more depth. She is someone who also had high chi, and she was kind of looked down upon, and she was called a witch and stuff like that. So in order for her to lead her life to the best she could be, she ended up attaching herself to inferior people, actually. These warriors, even though they're really good, they're nowhere compared to the power she is. And she has struggles, too, of being a woman in a man's world and trying to get her place. Her story parallels with Mulan. Mulan has high chi, too. Hers is in fighting. But what she does with that power is different than what the witch does. The witch is inherently selfish, where Mulan, she is still an honorable person who loves her family and she loves her country, and that separates them.
Sure.
But it also binds them together later on in the film, which is fantastic. I really enjoyed this. I'm going to shorten up because I am going on about this movie. I want to mention that the locales were splendid. I know they're getting a lot of flack for a thank you to a certain area of China right now, but it was absolutely stunning to look at. The choreography for the martial arts was fantastic. I enjoyed the bright colors. I like the locale just of the village that they live in. Not only did it look perfect, but it also looked very utilitarian. Like this is something that would actually serve a purpose instead of just painted landscapes. They put a lot of thought in everything that they did in this movie. There's a couple of cheesy moments that I don't think Disney could get out of because it is Disney.
Right, you have to remember that.
But I really enjoyed this movie a lot. And I feel like it was something I really needed for quite a long time. And I'm really glad I got one of these summer movies in. I really am.
That's awesome. I mean, Mulan is my favorite Disney princess. Like, I love her story, and my boys and I, even before my daughter was born, we watched these, and we really enjoyed Mulan because it's a really awesome story, and she's not the damsel in distress, and I always liked that, and I loved it because then when my daughter started watching Disney princess movies, she loves all of them, but she kind of attached to Mulan too, and I kind of like that because it's the one princess who has true strength in herself and doesn't rely on a man to find her strength for her. And so I've always kind of been drawn to this. So I'm glad to hear that they did it right.
The only thing I am a little questionable about is her power comes from chi, and it kind of gives her kind of supernatural powers, which kind of throws off the, being a woman is you can do anything a man can do. She is
if you have supernatural powers.
She is born with a little bit extra, but everybody has chi in them. It's just a little bit stronger with her than anybody else.
A lot of midichlorians in her.
A lot of midichlorians.
What do you give Mulan, sir?
I gave it a 4.5. This is a weak 4.5 because there is Disney cheese in here. And there's some moments where I'm just like, whoo, Disney. But
they can't help themselves.
But you can't help themselves, and it is beautiful, and it is a really good watch. I enjoyed myself.
Excellent to hear. I look forward to being able to watch this. That is really relieving to hear.
Yeah.
It's a movie that we were hoping to see on the big screen.
I was really hoping. And I see in the credits that it looked like there was going to be 3D, and I feel a little bummed that I missed out on the 3D
guy.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Moving on to the movie, the last movie we have on our streaming spotlight is a film from Netflix. It is called 1BR, or One Bedroom. This is a film that was supposed to be playing at our film festival this year, and my son and I actually had tickets to this one as well. Shows up on Netflix, written and directed by David Marmer, stars Nicole Bryden Bloom as Sarah. Sarah is a young woman who runs off to LA to start her life and live her dream, and she finds a place that seems nice enough, friendly complex. There's a kind of a communal feeling here, very inclusive, it's very diverse.
LA, which is hard to find a place anyways that you could afford.
And she befriends a friendly old lady who helps her kind of alleviate some of her fears because the first night there, she starts hearing what sounds like something in the walls. And one night, Sarah finds out why she's hearing these noises in her walls, because she is grabbed by her neighbors, including the cute guy Brian, who she's been flirting with, played by Giles Matthey. And the true motivations of this place begin to come into focus. And she finds out that she's kind of unwittingly stumbled into a Manson-ish cult, and led by a guy named Jerry, played by Taylor Nichols. Jerry uses some brutal techniques to break her down mentally and physically.
And it's not a choice.
No.
I mean, we start with the torture.
Yeah, the torture comes early.
Yeah.
And it sticks around pretty often. I mean, there's some really gory scenes here, including some animal torture. And they kind of, Sarah has this feeling of helplessness, hopelessness. I'm trapped. I can't get out. If I do, they're going to do things to my family, or it's there's some hopeless feeling here, and it gets really brutal in parts. And she's kind of forced to choose to submit and join this cult and become a member, and also to become a partner to one of the members who recently lost his wife, and he shows signs of the abuse from Jerry.
But she struggles at the same time. A lot of the people in here, everyone in here, actually has suffered the same abuse that she did.
Yeah.
But they finally succumb, and they become irreversibly a part of this cult.
Right.
Where she
hasn't reached that point yet.
No.
She knows. She still remembers the outside world. It feels like a lot of these people are like, this is all I know now.
Yeah.
This is all I know. Jerry is a scary character, man. Jerry is cold. He is unfeeling. He is
and her
happy
neighbor,
to torture you.
Brian, also extremely scary.
And the way they introduce Brian, you make him seem like he's the sympathetic character, and you realize, like, oh, he's really not sympathetic.
Yeah.
No.
Well, they are, but they're brainwashed sympathetic.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's chosen his side.
We are helping you while torturing you.
Don't worry, we're here to help. I'm curious what you think of 1BR.
I like the premise. I liked the setup. What I don't like is this is very much a torture flick.
Oh, yeah,
and
it's a hostile type movie.
Yeah, there's long, torturous scenes, and it eats up the majority of the runtime of this movie is just watching people being tortured, and it doesn't really matter if you submit or not. You're going to get the torture.
Right.
And there is points where you could reduce the amount of future torture, but either way, you start off with the torture. We're going to get this torture through. We won't even let you submit early because the torture has to happen.
Yeah, this has to happen.
And that I never really liked in movies. There's a couple of movies like Hostel, like the first one, the first Saw movie. They're both torture porn movies, but they had a good enough story that goes along with it where I forgive the large amount of torture that I just find draining. In this one, the premise is cool, but I didn't think the quality of acting or anything else can succumb the fact that I was just watching a lot of torture.
This might say a little something about me. So I watched this with my son.
Yep.
He's 18, and because we both were planning on seeing this at the film festival, so we're excited. Hey, here it's on, and there was moments where we had to look away. Like, I'm not looking at that happen. You know, like this is. I have some triggers. I'm like, okay, I just can't watch that. But there were also a lot of moments where we were kind of mystery science theatering some parts of this movie, you know. And I found it enjoyable enough. It's not a movie that I'm going to revisit.
Okay.
I found it marginally enjoyable. I did like the premise.
Yeah.
The payoff was weak.
Yeah, and it was expected. I mean, I knew at the end because, you know, it's a horror movie.
Yeah, that was, it did kind of go downhill towards the end of it, but curious what you gave 1BR.
I gave it a 2. I really didn't enjoy this, or can I recommend this because it just wasn't scary enough or well acted enough.
Fair enough. Yeah, I gave it 3. I don't know.
But you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
You're giving it
time.
on
giggling
good
along
times.
With some horrible torture. Before we move into our next thing, though, I want to give a quick little update because last week I did something that I've never done before. I put an asterisk with my score, right? We were talking about Tenet. And I said, I got to rewatch this movie. So I went and rewatched it this week.
Oh, wow.
And it's a 4-star for me. Okay. It made a lot more sense. I enjoyed it a lot more the second time around. It definitely needs 2 watches to pick up on everything. So Tenet is it's good.
I'll buy that on disc.
There you go.
I'll watch it.
It
was one of my top 10 too.
That it was. So now, you know, our summer of Keanu came to an end last week, and we said goodbye to Keanu, and we decided to start a new little series because we've been having so much fun with this.
And you named it.
We need some laughs. You know, sometimes we're a little short on laughs around here, so we decided that we are launching a new segment called Center Stage. And this first round of it will be with Mr. Steve Martin.
I think it's great that we named it. You were wrestling with us for a while. I think you picked a perfect name. And Steve Martin is actually a perfect person to really concentrate on for a while.
I agree. So we start with his first breakout movie, his first starring role.
The Jerk from 1979. He plays an 18-year-old boy just getting out of home, which in real life he was 34. Yeah. But either way, it doesn't matter. It is all comedy. This is a coming-of-age story as a grown man is out in the world for the first time, but he's a little delusional. He was grown up by sharecrop owners. It was a black family, and he never really realized that he was white.
Right.
And Steve Martin is the whitest guy I know.
And
he goes through with the same kind of mentality of someone who's just always saying, I'm black and stuff like that. And he is not the smartest guy, but he goes through a whirlwind of life experiences, job to job, relationship to relationship, and the way he delivers all his lines are just fantastic.
It's Steve Martin, man.
When you're done with this movie, you really do feel like you've gone through an adventure where he goes from literal rags to extreme riches, and everything along the way is absurd, but it flows so nicely, and there's so many quotes. And
so many bits in this movie.
His relationship with Bernadette Peters, it was fantastic. And in real life, they also had a chemistry. So that's probably why they worked so well on.
And they worked together in a few other films as well. Just so many memorable bits in here. And Steve Martin, like a master of physical comedy.
Yeah.
And this is the movie that really made a name for himself on the big screen. He's in every minute of this movie, and you even see seeds in this as a very early actor of him being able to do more than just slapstick comedy. And we'll kind of discuss that more as this series goes along of how he progressed as an actor, going from stand-up into acting at a time when that wasn't like every stand-up becomes an actor. And at the time, it really wasn't necessarily that way.
Yeah, he was extremely considered fringe, fall down.
Yeah.
He was known for Saturday Night Live, but he wasn't ever known to be anything serious ever.
Yeah. I enjoy this film. This is a film, it's dated, but it still holds up as well as ever to me. I think it's a great one.
There's a lot of things that a modern movie would not be able to get away with it.
No.
But I think a lot of people still love this movie.
That guy looking like he's 53 years old.
I just need a thermos. That's all I need.
Let's move on, sir, to what is coming soon, the weekend of September 18th. We've got a few films, couple in theaters. First off, a film called Infidel, which will be playing in theaters, starring Jim Caviezel. He is a man who is kidnapped in Cairo, and his wife must get him back at any cost. We also have in theaters The Nest, starring Jude Law and Carrie Coon. It is a family drama.
Is it about birds?
I hope not. Streaming, we have The Public, will be on the Peacock Network. A drama starring Alec Baldwin, Emilio Estevez, Taylor Schilling, Christian Slater, directed by Emilio Estevez.
What?
Huh?
Emilio!
The Mighty Duck Man himself. And then lastly, on Netflix, a film called The Devil All the Time, starring Robert Pattinson, Tom Holland, Haley Bennett, Riley Keough. It is a crime drama, and I like that cast a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued by that. Before we leave you, though, we want to thank our sponsor for this program, the Palace Theater here in Sun Prairie Marcus Theaters. Thank you for sponsoring this program, and we hope you keep the doors open and the lights on, and we appreciate everything you do for us. Mike, next week we got some movies. We got a film called Broken Hearts Gallery.
Okay.
Sounds like it's right up your alley. We also have The Babysitter, Killer Queen. We have Unpregnant. We have Killer Elite. And then we have another center stage film with Mr. Steve Martin. I'm excited for that. There's a couple of these films.
You already know what it is. I see a disc over there,
yeah, you can't,
but I can't see what it is.
I can't reveal it. I can't and I won't. But you will have to tune in next week to find out what that Steve Martin film is. If you want to take some guesses, make sure to find us on Facebook and Instagram. Real Reviews TV at both places. Find us there. But until next week when we reveal all of that, I'm Jameson.
I'm Mike Roth.
Thanks for watching.